I'll just tell you kind of a little bit about the summit and what it is we're trying to do with the summit, especially now that we've had one summit. So we have a better idea what they actually, what kind of animal it is. As you know, the whole purpose of the IIS is to allow our colleagues to host international fellows, so we can kind of work together collaboratively. It is partially a reputational exercise, so we want to expose our research to the outside world, but it's also for us to be able to kind of to really spend meaningful time with people outside of the UK in particular. And so, as you know, before we started the summits, we were running themes, which were kind of a 1 year long big events, but the events within the theme would go through an academic year. And that we've just realized that that's like a little bit too much. And the academics who are running the themes are also losing the motivation. And so now we decided to move to a shorter format, but also very intensive and making a big splash out of it. And so this is what the research summits are about. Basically, it is a week-long series of events that bring together international fellows, so they can be scholars, they can be policymakers, they can be artists, they can be activists, practitioners, so anyone, but they have to be quite high profile. So we would bring them to Loughborough so that we can kind of talk about really ambitious and really innovative research agendas. We invite summits that kind of through two routes. So the first one would be the summit between academics and fellows who have collaborated before, but they maybe just want to kind of ask a different question. They maybe they just want to give a different angle to their question, to their research. And the second route is speculative. So this is completely new kind of blue sky, horizon scanning kind of thinking. It doesn't have to happen with fellows or with Loughborough collaborators whom you have worked previously, or in fact, even on the subject that you worked previously. You may kind of speculate that, if I touch upon this with this discipline, it might lead to something really exciting. So we had the first Africa Summit in the end of October this year. And we kind of realized that it's probably the easiest way to show what the summit is like is to actually kind of show what was happening behind the scene. Because it was a lot. As you can imagine, the week of events is a lot of work. So the Africa Summit focused on the question of Africa and sustainable development goals across 3 strategic themes. So net zero climate change, vibrant inclusive communities, and sports, so Loughborough strategic themes. And that's how the days were kind of put together. But all of them, all the conversations led to Africa and sustainable development goals and the research that we're doing at Loughborough. So this is the draft, the final draft that nobody but the IIS team and basically the special envoys have seen. So you can see that across 5 days, we have quite a lot of events, right? And lots of kind of speakers and things. But basically, in a nutshell, day 1 was welcome. And we had Dan Parsons opening it because Vice Chancellor was away. And then the kind of panel between the special envoys and the international fellows. Day 2 was on sport, so PVC Sport opened it for us, and we had a keynote speech by Lynn Sambili, who was our fellow. So she was a summit fellow, and she's from the Commonwealth. And then we had a panel, and then in the afternoon we had another panel. But everything was around sport. So the panels were chaired by Loughborough academics. They were not the summit organizers. The summit organizers were 2 special envoys for sub-Saharan Africa, and then we invited 2 different academics to chair the panels for us. So day 2, kind of similar, keynote, then panel, and the keynote was chaired by APVC for climate change net zero, John Downey. And the final day was vibrant inclusive community. I ended up chairing it because APVC, vibrant inclusive communities, Emily, she had something urgent came up, so kind of I stepped in, but she would have been chairing it otherwise. And so again, we had a keynote and a panel discussion. So all the keynotes were from the fellows. We had 3 fellows. We were supposed to have 4. And 2 out of the 4 actually had visa issues. So this is something to really consider. We needed more time. And we kind of knew this with African fellows. But even then, we ran out of time, right? So that's kind of this political climate is really not helping our cause. So we ended up with 3 fellows, and then 1 fellow joined online, and all the panelists, some of the panelists were external, so they were UK panelists, but they were not fellows, and some of the panelists were Loughborough, so our colleagues. So that's kind of in a nutshell, that's what it looked like. So as I said, 3 external panelists, 10 Loughborough colleagues, and we also had 1 art exhibition. So this is something that we're really, really trying to do with the summit. We really want to bring our academic work closer with things that are done at LU Arts and Radar. And the exhibition, Kerry Okiwowo curated it for us. It was fantastic. It was kind of one of my favorite things that the IS has ever done. She really engaged with the work that we're doing on Africa and kind of really managed to showcase it. It was great. And we hosted it all in the International House, and the exhibition was open for everyone. So in terms of the kind of fellows and panelists, we want the organizers to invite those, but we are there to help, particularly with Loughborough people, because at the AS, we kind of know, because we're networking perpetually, so we have quite good idea of who's who at the university, and we can help out with that. And then in terms of the Research Summit practicalities, so it's really, really important for the people who are running the summit to consider the dates. There is never a perfect date. Like, no matter when we choose, which week we choose, there's somebody's complaining saying, oh, there's too much marking, there's too much teaching, there is, something. But like university closures, maybe external events, even half terms for people, with caring responsibilities are kind of not great. So it's just worth thinking when is a better time rather than the best time. In terms of coordinating teams, so the summit has to be run by at least 2 core leads from at least 2 disciplinary areas. So we would prefer if they were from 2 different schools, but we also understand that in some schools, like in my own school, we have structural engineers and we can have critical urban theorists, or kind of completely different, kettle of fish. But really for your own sanity, it's better if there are 4 coordinators, so 4 leads, because then you can spread things out a little bit. So maybe, 3, 4 disciplines as well. It'll be just easier to manage. And we would expect the leads to nominate 3 to 5 international fellows. The reason we say 3 to 5 is because we have a budget. So Africa Summit was around £10,000. We don't put a budget per se on the summit, but this is the figure that we approximately work with. And so if you bring fellows, say, from Europe, you can probably afford more because we cover, all the travel, all the accommodation. But if you bring somebody, say, from Brazil, or from Japan, then that becomes expensive. So you can't really bring as many fellows. We also would want the leads of the summit to tell us, to think really who might be interested in the summit at the university, because we are trying to kind of to make sure that every school is engaged, but we normally help out with this as well. And then think about the legacy. So, why do you actually want the summit? So what would be the result? We are not UKRI. We will not knock on your door and kind of say, oh, have you written the proposal? That's not the purpose of the AS, but we still want something to come out of this. Even if it's collaboration, paper, I don't know, a meaningful discussion, like that's great, and we will track that legacy. So the application form is already on the website, and the next deadline is 11th of April. So there is plenty of time. And that is for the first semester of the next academic year. So, if you have an idea, we can chat about this now, but like later on as well when you're working with your colleagues. And so as a result of the Africa Summit, we also kind of made a few to-do points for the hosts. So first of all is the clear idea of the outcome. Because once the leads have the clear idea, it becomes really easy for them to write the blurb as to what the summit is about, which we need for promotion events and for the, for all the registrations. And if that idea isn't clear, that becomes, quite a tedious task for all involved. We talked about the fellows already. And then we also have quite strict internal deadlines. So we would expect the leads to really follow those deadlines. Because it's visa applications, it's the kind of marketing, promotion, invitations, and so on and so forth. So you can imagine that if you want to secure a vice chancellor to open a session, this needs to be in his calendar kind of 6 months in advance. Otherwise, we don't stand a chance. What we also realized is that whilst we will help you to develop the draft schedule for a week. So, once the leads tell us what they want, which themes they want, we also want together to think about plan B. We had, a couple of dropouts. So Ed Brown, for example, fell ill a couple of days before the summit. So somebody had to step in. Emily couldn't attend, so I stepped in. And it would have been easier if we'd actually had a plan B from the get-go. Maybe there would be somebody in the audience or kind of in the panel straight away. Then, of course, so we promote the summit. We work really closely with marketing. We think this time, actually, it works really well. It was kind of everywhere, on every screen, and it was the university newsletter and like on the website. But of course, we also want the leads to spread the word a little bit. So blurbs I already said. Well, ensure that relevant colleagues attend. We send the invitations to people you tell us. But if we miss somebody, then it would be great if leads can tell us so. And then engage in sessions. We would love for the leads to chair the sessions, to even participate as panelists, to kind of to attend all the sessions. So it's quite a lot of work overall, but it's definitely worth it, because the excitement that the summit generated was really, really great. And then the most important, attend dinner with a clear list of guests. We pay for the dinner, of course, and normally barely record, but we expect the host to be there. And then write a blog in the end. But as we realized with Africa Summit, it was basically the final reflections of the hosts. So they just send us the same document with some edits. And that was that. So the application form on the website, and it's quite a straightforward application form. And that's it, really.